Hi, I'm Beck and food's my life. Today I'm making my all-time favourite cake and it's coming right up. So today I'm making Sri Lankan love cake. Now I know recently Persian love cake has become really trendy. I see it in the cafes all the time, and Persian love cake is beautiful, and I do make a version of that myself as well. But this is Sri Lankan love cake. Similar flavours, but this is kind of my favourite out of the two. Now, love cake is not a conventional cake by any means. It doesn't have flour and milk. It's not spongy, light and fluffy. It's completely different. Instead of flour, it's made on semolina. So the texture's a little bit different. It's a little bit more dense and a little bit more granular. The flavors are sensational, and that's what makes this cake truly unique. So just a little bit of a history lesson. So back in the 1600s, 1700s, the Dutch came to Sri Lanka, which was then known as Ceylon, the island of Ceylon. And when they came to Sri Lanka, they brought with them their influence of cuisine. And love cake is something that the Dutch introduced to Sri Lanka. Now, of course, Sri Lanka was one of the original spice islands. So the spice trade in that island back in the ancient days contributed heavily towards Sri Lankan cuisine and all those beautiful flavors. So the Dutch had access to beautiful spices to make their love cake there. Now, if you're gluten-free, stay tuned because I have fine-tuned my own gluten-free version of love cake, which uses almond meal instead of semolina. If you go to my recipe, you'll see that I've put the gluten-free alternative ingredients there for you. So check it out. What makes love cake truly unique is the delicate, complex blend of spices and flavors. You've got flavors like rose water, honey, nutmeg, cinnamon, almond essence. It's just, they all work together so beautifully. A little bit of lemon, vanilla. It's a taste sensation that you have to experience to really understand. There's nothing quite like having a cup of tea in the afternoon with a little slice of love cake, and you want to make it last because it's just so sensational. So this is my mum's favourite cake. It's my favourite cake. I'm making this cake for my mum today. So first of all, I'm just going to explain to you all the things you need to have prepared before you can make the cake. First of all, I've got my oven preheating to 160 degrees. I have roughly lined a slice tray that is 20 by 30 centimeters. Now, the ingredients. Here I have 3 tablespoons of honey. My spices in this little bowl are 1/4 teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg and 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. Here I have 1 teaspoon of grated lemon rind. And here I have 1/2 cup of finely chopped up pumpkin preserve. Now, this is an ingredient you can live without. It doesn't really matter if you can't get your hand on this ingredient, but traditionally it's in the recipe. So pumpkin preserve, I get it from my Indian grocer. I'll show you what it looks like. It comes in a jar, and I buy the MD brand, that's marketing department, that's a Sri Lankan brand. And it's quite pale in colour. They're just big chunks of preserved pumpkin in like a sugar syrup. So I have roughly 1/2 cup of those chunks of pumpkin finely chopped up, and a little bit of that sugar syrup kind of adds to it as well. So it's fine to have a bit of that syrup in your 1/2 cup. My flavourings are almond essence, rose water and vanilla extract. Here I have 1.5 cups of coarse semolina. In this bowl, I have roughly chopped 150 grams of raw cashew nuts. Now, sometimes I'm tempted to just put those cashew nuts in my food processor and just pulse it and blitz it so that it chops up nice and quickly. But it's just my luck. I pulse it just that little bit too long and the cashew nuts become too fine. Now, the lovely thing about this cake is that you get these chunky bits of cashew nuts all throughout it. So I chop this by hand, and I chop each and every cashew probably about into 5 pieces. So I've got some good chunks of cashew nuts right here. In this bowl, I have 125 grams of butter at room temperature, that's unsalted butter. Here I have 2 cups of caster sugar. In this bowl I have 10 egg yolks, and in this bowl I have 3 egg whites. So the first step is to mix the semolina and the butter together in a small mixing bowl until it resembles wet sand. The next step is to beat the eggs and the caster sugar together until they are thick and pale, and then I'm going to add the lemon rind as well. Now I'm using a stand-up mixer, but you don't have to do it with a stand-up mixer. You can just use a good old pair of beaters like this in a bowl is fine. In go the eggs, in goes the sugar, and we'll start beating. Okay, so I've been beating that for a little over 10 minutes now, and I know it's ready because that consistency is nice and creamy. So now what we're gonna do is, in a minute, I'm gonna put that back on at a medium speed, and I'm going to very slowly, tablespoon at a time, add my semolina mixture to the cake mixture. Nice and slowly until the whole quantity of semolina and butter is finished. So let's go. Medium speed, tablespoon at a time. Slowly incorporating these two together. So once you've finished including all the semolina mixture to the bowl, you'll notice that the mixture in here is getting quite dry. So now it's time to add some liquids. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Now I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of almond essence. And finally, I'm going to add 50 ml of rosewater essence. Now that's a whole one of these little bottles. Now, if you think that's excessive, don't worry. Remember, this is only rosewater essence. This is not pure rosewater. If it was pure rosewater, I'd probably be using a lot less, but rosewater essence, tip in the whole 50 ml. Okay, now let's just mix those liquids in with the mixture. I've stopped to scrape down those sides. I can see the mixture is nice and wet again. So now I'm going to add the rest of these ingredients. So that's the 1/2 cup of pumpkin preserve, if you can get your hands on it. Those spices, the cashew nuts, and that beautiful honey. Okay, so on a slow speed, let's start to incorporate those together. Then we're going to up the speed and continue until it's mixed thoroughly. Perfume coming from this bowl. Unbelievable. So normally I would do this next step while that's beating, but of course I've had to put it off so you can hear me. But the next step is to beat these egg white until they are nice and stiff. I'm just gonna add a pinch of salt first. So here we go, I'm gonna go back to beating this and doing my egg whites at the same time. Okay, so I've finished mixing my cake batter and my egg whites are nice and stiff. So now what we're going to do is use a spatula to slowly, bit by bit, fold in the egg whites into your cake mixture. So just a little bit at a time, fold it nice and gently, nice and light, try and keep some of that air in. Okay, so all that's left to do is pour this lovely batter into my prepared slice tin. All right, I'm gonna put this in the oven now for approximately an hour, but I'll get back to you on that and give you the precise length of time once it comes out, because I've just got a new oven, so times might vary a little bit, but roughly an hour. I'll see you soon. And here we have it, love cake, and it just smells so beautiful. So in the end, it was in the oven for 40 minutes at 160 degrees, and then I cooked it for an extra 20 minutes at 150 degrees with a little bit of foil just covering it so it wouldn't get any browner than this. This is a really nice deep caramel brown color, but you don't want to go any browner than this. So as you can see, it's certainly not the most beautiful cake in the world, but it certainly tastes beautiful, and that's the main thing. So It's been cooling for a little while. I've taken it out of the tray and I'm about to cut it. You really should wait until it's completely cool before you cut it. Then once you do, if it's winter, you can keep this stored in an airtight container out of the fridge. If it's in the warmer months, then you really should probably keep this refrigerated. Okay, here's the test. Oh yes. Oh, that is perfect. Wow. Okay, so, it's hard for you to see, but let me try and explain it. So what we've got, those egg whites have created a bit of a crispy layer on top. Then we've got a nice layer of those chunky cashew nuts in a sort of a caramelly kind of sticky honey caramel, and then that semolina is towards the bottom, and that's fine. That's the way it should look, slightly layered like that. It still needs to be a little bit wet and gooey as well. So when you think it's done cooking, insert a skewer. If it's really wet, then it's not cooked enough and you'll need to keep baking covered with alfoil. But if you insert a skewer and there's a few crumbs clinging and it's a little bit wet, that'll be fine. As it cools, the residual heat will keep on cooking it slightly, and it needs to be a little bit wet. Love cake cannot be dry. But anyway, all this talking, how about some eating? That's still warm. That flavour is so unique. If you like Persian love cake, then you will love Sri Lankan love cake. So please give it a go. Don't forget to check out the description box below where you'll find links to my website where you can get the recipe to my beautiful Sri Lankan love cake. Savour it. This will last you quite a while. It's a little treat you can keep in the fridge just for you, or share with your friends, of course. This is a cake for special occasions. Traditionally in Sri Lanka, it would be made for someone's birthday, some sort of celebration. And you know, it's called love cake. And I still remember my auntie saying, it's called love cake because it really is a bit of a labor of love to make it. Because it's a bit of a process, but you know, if you just take the time, it is well worth it. Don't forget to like my videos, share my videos, or better still, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.